You were doing rewrites for several years. When did you actually sell a first script?
Oh gosh, I don't think I sold a spec until years into my career. Most of my early work was doing rewrites and then talking to the producers and saying, you're basically paying other people the bulk of the money to do this original draft, and then I'm fixing it. Why don't you just hire me to start? So then they said, yes, we'll do that. And so, but those were still work for hire projects. So they were coming to me with the concepts and the ideas or whatever, and then I was just writing them. So it took a long time before I actually sold a spec that I had just written on my own and taken to market.
So it sounds like the traditional way that you think of, oh, you're going to go pitch and they're going to like say yes and write you a check. You had already had inroads and you were already doing work, but you were fixing other people's work and just kind of like created your own job.
Yeah,
Sounds like,
basically.
okay.
Most people, when they think of screenwriting, they think of that. They think of the pitch and going into the room and pitching, and then someone saying, yes, go write this for us, we love it, and then you sell it. Um, and that certainly exists. It didn't for me. There's a ton of work in rewriting other people's stuff. And most people just don't know, most writers don't know how to rewrite. Like they take it to the level that they can, and either they don't want to change it. There's a lot of writers who, they really fall in love with their stuff and they don't want to make any changes. And ultimately that makes them get fired off a project. And then they bring on another writer who will make the changes. Or they just have taken it to, as much as they're able to take it. And they want to bring in a fresh sense. So, producers will sometimes do that. So that for me was where most of my early work was from.
But I think that's great too because you know the style of the person that you're going to be writing for.
Yeah.
So I think that's an excellent way. Do a lot of people get in that way, or is that sort of an interesting way to kind of create your own job?
I think I don't know if a lot of people get in that way. I mean, I do know other writers, especially in the TV world when you're doing features for television, a lot of writers get in that way. Just being able to write other people's rewrites, that's key. If you can do that, you're pretty much going to get hired again and again because there aren't a lot of people who know how to do that. And being able to really listen to what the producer wants. And the more you do that, obviously, the more you understand budgets and what they want. And sometimes when you get cryptic notes, you kind of can navigate through those notes a little bit better. So yeah, but that is one way in that a lot of people don't think of.
And I'm sure the writer that does the rewrites is probably much easier to deal with because they're not as precious. Because in terms of that's not their work, it's not their baby
Well,
that's being criticized.
that's very true. I think writers have to be very careful about being precious because even with my original stuff, I have to take a step back and make sure I'm not being that way because I don't want to suddenly become the writer that they want to fire and hire, someone else. But it's difficult, I mean, especially the more time you invest in a project, I feel like the more precious it becomes to you. Which is why also I think it's important to finish projects. Some writers will work on something for 3 or 4 years, like one script.
Right.
And just you got to end it and you got to move on to the next thing because every time you move on to that next one, you become a better writer. So get those first 7 under your belt and click them off, and then keep moving. And you can always revisit them, but you've got to keep going through it.
So even though the way you sold your first script was through the fact that you were already doing rewrites and the people already knew your writing and loved what you did, do you then go in cold and pitch? And is that a way that you've sold scripts?
I've never sold anything that way ever. I've never, and I've done it. I mean, just like every writer, I've gone in the room and pitched, and yeah, but typically those projects don't pan out. At least they haven't for me. Most of the projects that I get are usually because you've met a director, you've met an actor, you've met a producer, you've talked about it for a while. Yeah, we want to work together. You come up with an idea. Is this the right time? Eventually everything aligns and, they say, hey, we've got the money. You want to do the script. Let's go for it now. And that's how it works.